The Orlando Magic should have one of the best defenses in the NBA this season, while Jonathan Isaac takes them to a whole nother level today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 25th. It will be September 26th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossreich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, what makes the Orlando Magic's defense so dangerous and what's going to make it even more dangerous this season? We'll talk about Jonathan Isaac and how the Magic can be one of the best defenses in the league. Once again, we'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This Orlando Magic team is built on its defense. There's no getting around that. That is who this team is. They finished third in the league in defensive rating last year. They were top 10 in the league in defense after December 7th in 2023, after their 5-20 start. The Orlando Magic built themselves on defense. And no player can take this team from merely a really, really good defense to the best defense in the entire league, quite like Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac is largely recognized as the Magic's best defensive player. And that is on a team that, yes, finished third in defensive rating last year. A team that has an all-defensive second-team player in Jalen Suggs. That has potentially another all-defensive team player now in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We'll talk about what he has here in a minute. As well as, I'm starting this campaign, a potential all-defensive team player in Franz Wagner as well. Yeah, I'm going to be on that campaign all year long. Franz Wagner is an all-defensive type caliber player. But Jonathan Isaac is undoubtedly a defensive player of the year type player. When he's healthy, when he's playing. He was not eligible for the all-defensive team this year because of a minutes played restriction. But Jonathan Isaac is very much the defensive player that everybody around the league fears. Nobody wants to deal with Jonathan Isaac, or wants to deal with Jonathan Isaac as little as humanly possible. Isaac, we all know, the issue with him has never been about ability. The issue with Jonathan Isaac has never been about what he can do. It's always been about, is he gonna play enough? After the injuries that knocked him out for nearly 3 whole seasons, Isaac finally found some runway, finally found some health, played 58 games, about 15 minutes per game. But by the end of the season, the Magic could not get enough of Jonathan Isaac. The more they could play Jonathan Isaac, the more ways they could deploy him and use him, the better. That's what the Magic wanted, and that's what the Magic wanted to do so desperately, to play Isaac that way. The number is quite simple. The Orlando Magic had a 102.1 defensive rating with Jonathan Isaac on the floor. 102.1. The Orlando Magic's overall defensive rating, again, third in the league, was 110. The most used lineup the Magic had with Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Joe Ingles, Mo Wagner, had a 101.8 defensive rating in 102 minutes. I want to put that in perspective because Cole Anthony is a willing but still improving defender. Joe Ingles, not a good defender. Willing, trying, not keeping anybody in front of him. Mo Wagner's idea of rim protection is to take charges. He was third in the league in charges drawn last year. That is the strength of Jonathan Isaac. That is how good of a defender Jonathan Isaac can be. And he maintained all of these stats after the All-Star break when his minutes started to creep up a little bit. It's only 104.2 defensive rating with Isaac on the floor. That's still really good. And then a 98.7 defensive rating with Isaac on the floor in the playoffs, including a 1.3 points per 100 possessions better than the team's postseason average. That's even with Isaac playing center against Jared Allen in games 1 and 2, a strategy that I'm very much on record I did not think was the right idea. At the end of the day, what makes the Magic special is that Isaac is an elite player. I said this a lot while he was hurt, and I don't think it's the case as much anymore because Paolo Banchero is really good. If you haven't heard, go listen to yesterday's episode. Jonathan Isaac is one of the few players on this team still that has an elite skill. And the Magic this year are going to be trying to find as many ways to get Jonathan Isaac involved and use him as much as they can. They really, whatever parameters or limits they put on themselves, they stretched those limits last year because quite simply, they couldn't keep Isaac off the floor. It's very possible the Magic go to smaller lineups. I think Jamal Mosley in an interview with Steve Ashburner on NBA.com said, we could go small, but we're still pretty big. They could easily put Jonathan Isaac at the 5. They could easily put him at the 4 with Paolo and Franz at the 2 and the 3. They could go a number of different directions, and Isaac is totally comfortable doing it. On top of all this, Isaac is a little bit of a drain offensively, shot about 37% from 3, still kind of figuring himself out offensively. Obviously, did not have a great offensive playoffs. But now Isaac's had a healthy offseason. Now Isaac is, assumedly, we'll find out more on Monday, I suppose. Now Isaac has positioned himself or put himself in a place where he can focus on his skills and improving his individual skills so much more than just worrying about being on the floor. I don't think Jonathan Isaac's going to play just 15 minutes per game this year. Let's put it that way. And all those other pieces are going to be added to the puzzle. So will Isaac be able to play with the breakneck intensity defensively that he played with last year? Maybe not, but then again, that's kind of how he's wired. That's kind of his deal. I've noted this several times. I think Jonathan Isaac is essentially this team's 6th man. I know a lot of people focus on offense when it comes to the 6th man and that role within the offense. Jonathan Isaac is that important to what the Magic do. And he obviously makes a very good defense that much better because he can lock down a guard on the perimeter. He can rotate over and block a shot at the rim. He is a dynamic and dangerous offensive player. Defensive player, excuse me. Someone who just changes the game with his presence. There are no players, maybe Herb Jones. I jokingly did that Spider-Man meme when I was in New Orleans, but maybe Herb Jones, but there are so few players that do what Jonathan Isaac can do. And if the Magic are going to be successful again this year, it's going to start with their defense and how good their defense can be. And that obviously starts with Jonathan Isaac. Isaac's going to be a big factor and a big key to that puzzle of saying, this is how we, the Orlando Magic, take the next step. It's going to be fascinating to watch him play. It is going to be fascinating to see how he grows and develops now that we're no longer worried about the injury. Like, sure, if he's feeling sore, the Magic going to hold him out? Absolutely. Is he going to play back-to-backs right off the top of the season? The Magic 3rd game of the season in Memphis is a back-to-back? I don't know. I don't know if that's still part of the plan. But you have to imagine, after making it through last season, a lot of those injury restrictions are going to be gone. And you have to imagine that Isaac is going to take a critical step forward for this team, be more involved, be used in so many more ways and still be extremely effective for this Magic team to get where they want to be. Jonathan Isaac really does make a huge difference for the Orlando Magic. And nowhere does he make as big of a difference as with his deflections and disruption. We're going to dive into a couple more numbers that preview how the Magic dominate defensively. And we'll start with what the impact that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's going to make coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Look, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. If you want to play PrizePicks alongside some celebrities like Drewski or Joe Budden, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Football is obviously in full swing. It is a perfect way to play daily fantasy sports. And with basketball on the horizon and the WNBA playoffs here, PrizePicks has you covered with the best daily fantasy game that I've played. I really enjoy PrizePicks. I'll probably be getting back into it now that the season is getting going. Download PrizePicks today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. It is a busy time here in Central Florida. The Tampa Bay Lightning played their preseason game against the Florida Panthers at the Kia Center. They do that every year. We got UCF playing Colorado this weekend, a big game over at the Bounce House. Of course, Orlando Magic basketball right around the corner, just 2 weeks away from the Magic's preseason home opener against the New Orleans Pelicans. And if you need tickets to these or any event in your area, Gametime has you covered. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can look at Gametime and find tickets to all kinds of events, not just sports, but theater too. I've had my eyes on a couple shows. I know the Book of Mormon's coming to town here in Orlando. You can get great seats to shows really anywhere that shows with the Gametime app. Gametime Picks, their curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Their all-in pricing feature, if you toggle that on, they show you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get seat views, get a digital panoramic view from your seat so you know exactly the view of the stage, court, field, whatever that you're going to get. And Gametime has such great customer service. I had a problem with the MLB app when I went to the Rays game through Gametime. They fixed me up, made sure I had the ticket on my phone. It was perfect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day. For your next listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Jonathan Isaac is really important to what the Magic want to do defensively because he very much fits this identity that the Magic have. We all joke about it. The Magic love life. They love big players. They love positionally versatile guys. They want to be able to switch really 1 through 5 if they can get away with it. They want to be able to just seamlessly flow into their defense and everyone be able to guard everyone. Again, that's kind of the idea of a lot of things the Magic are trying to do. And that shows itself in some key stats that the Magic have defensively. One area where the Magic are really, really strong is in this idea of deflections and disruption. The Orlando Magic averaged 15.2 deflections per game, according to NBA.com's Hustle Stats. That was 8th in the league. They were 5th in the league with 3 defensive loose balls recovered per game. So a key part of their defense, forcing turnovers. Magic forced a 15.4% turnover rate, 2nd in the league. The idea of what the Magic are building, and look, the Hustle Stats are a little misleading. They're not the greatest things to look at, but the general idea of what the Magic are trying to build is to be able to envelop you in arms, to make it really difficult for you to get around a player, to make a pass and have to pass through hands, arms, legs, whatever, to get through to that other side. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be a good time for you if you're an offense. And the Magic have really done this to a T. Obviously, Jonathan Isaac led the team in deflections, but the Magic's guards get in the mix too. Jalen Suggs averaged 2.5 deflections per game last year. That ranked 19th among guards. Again, not the end-all be-all of disruption. It's just a stat that gives us some measure of what these players can do and what the Magic are looking like. But it gives us a hint. And remember, Jalen Suggs is really good. Top-end guy on that stat. So was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We talked a little bit about this, I think, when the Magic signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but it really did feel like the Magic were sort of doubling down on this strength. They were doubling down on this idea of let's get length, let's get switchability, let's get strong defenders who are disruptive. That's what KCP is. And I know we talked about him in the offense episode last week. He adds that element to the defense too. He averaged 2.4 deflections per game last year, typically while defending the best perimeter player for the Denver Nuggets. What that suggests is the Magic essentially have a backcourt that is especially disruptive. This might be one of the best defensive backcourts in the league. It's really the class of defensive backcourt that the Magic have. It's Jalen Suggs and KCP, Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, or Drew Holiday and Derek White, depending on how you measure positions there, and then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luke Stort for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now, or I guess now, Alex Caruso. The Magic probably have some work to do to still establish themselves, but they have one of the best defensive backcourts in the league. I'm not going to argue who has the best. I like Oklahoma City's group. I'm not going to lie. Boston's group's really good, but Orlando's in that class of team. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, again, adds to this disruptive nature. Both Suggs and Caldwell-Pope and measured at least excellent with their one-on-one defense too. Opponents last year, and this is an imperfect measure, not going to lie, opponents shot 46.4% against Suggs as the primary defender according to NBA.com's tracking stats. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gave up just 44.3% shooting defensively, 2.2 percentage points worse than expected. Suggs is at like less than a percentage point worse than expected, but again, taking harder shots. He's defending some difficult shots. What the Magic have now are two guys who can be aggressive, knowing that you have a Jonathan Isaac likely behind you or Wendell Carter behind you to clean up some mess, but guys who know they can be physical and be aggressive and be disruptive. Again, this is central to the whole idea. And the fact that the Magic can say, oh, Jalen Suggs needs a break or we want to save some of Suggs' physicality for the fourth quarter, KCP, go guard Donovan Mitchell for a little bit. And KCP is going to be able to guard Donovan Mitchell successfully or switch on to a Jason Tatum if the Magic need that, or Jaylen Brown, maybe some guys that Suggs might otherwise struggle with because KCP is a little bit taller. This is the flexibility the Magic have. And now the Magic have these super disruptive guys to get into passing lanes, to slow down the offense. I'm a numbers guy. Like, numbers inform a lot of how I break down the game, but these numbers and defensive numbers generally don't always get to exactly what we're talking about. But I think disruption and deflections are really important, even if they're not registered in these stats. Because at the end of the day, you got 24 seconds to score. And if you have to spend part of those 24 seconds resetting, making sure you have the ball, that's the difference. That's the difference between allowing the defense to recover and get reset. That's the difference between a steal or a turnover, which is so vital to what the Magic do and the way the Magic defend. It's the difference between having enough time to get a good shot or a shot clock violation, to be perfectly honest. We're talking about such narrow margins, and that little deflection means so much. And the Magic have a lot of players, a lot of key players, a lot of, frankly, some of their star players who are not only physical and can absorb contact. Again, I'm going to be on this train all year. Franz Wagner's an all-defensive player, all-defensive team type player. Watch him when we start playing games again. Watch how he absorbs contact. That dude is strong. That dude is strong. And just being in a spot, not necessarily even taking a charge, but being in a spot to turn someone away and absorbing contact slows the offensive player down, slows the offense down, allows the defense to get set, allows the defense to increase pressure. It changes everything. And the Magic now have two players on the perimeter, and Franz Wagner and Jonathan Isaac, who can and Gary Harris coming off the bench, who's not a bad defender himself, who can do this and disrupt offenses. It's really, really exciting, and it's the reason why the Magic could have one of the best offenses in the league. But this defense is not perfect. We'll talk about the rim protection. I'm going to tell you how the Magic give up the shots they want to give up. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return this year on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your bets. There are so many great things to see on FanDuel right now, including NBA futures like the Orlando Magic over under 47.5 wins, or the Magic +1 at Miami for their opening night game. That has stayed steady at +1 if you want to get in on that action, or the Magic at -140 to win the Southeast Division. They have all these great offers, but if you want to get into football, if you want to get into the gridiron, UCF now 14.5-point favorites again against Colorado for this Saturday's big game at the Bounce House. Apologies to Jamal Mosley for what may happen at the Bounce House if those odds are correct. I do think that's gonna be a close game. If I were a betting man, I might take Colorado with the points at that point. But no matter what you're looking for, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's only available at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. So the Orlando Magic's defense is really, really good. Like, really, really good. And we're expecting it to be really, really good again. We are expecting the Magic, essentially for the Magic to be successful again. They're going to have to be a top 5 defense. You know, they did not shift the roster around. You know, they're betting on rolling a lot of things back. And essentially, you know, the offense is going to be what the offense is. We talked a lot about the offense last week, but the offense is going to be what the offense is. Hopefully it's a little bit better. But the pathway for Magic success is still about being an elite defense, not just a good defense, an elite defense. And I think there is still a little bit of skepticism because the Orlando Magic are not a stereotypically strong rim protecting team. They are not a team with this high-flying shot blocker who isn't named Jonathan Isaac. Wendell Carter is more earthbound. He is more positional. He's about being in the right spot, contesting the shot, blocking it if he can, but contesting the shot, turning around, boxing out, getting the rebound. And that was an area where he struggled a little bit last year, but actually the stats even though his raw rebounding numbers were down, the stats actually liked his rebounding. And again, I've made this point. The Magic were a top 10 defensive rebounding team in the league last year. So it's not as much of a problem as you think. But being able to protect the rim, being able to make plays at the rim, being able to block shots and make plays is vital. It is not something to turn down. But here's the thing. One thing the Magic were quietly very good at last year was preventing teams from even getting shots in the paint and getting shots at the rim. Last year, the Orlando Magic defended 26.2 field goal attempts per game at the rim, according to data from Second Spectrum. That was the 7th fewest in the league. Now, opponents shot 64.1% at the rim. Again, this is at the rim. You're expecting them to make shots. And that ranked 12th in that category. So if you're a little worried about the Magic's rim protection and ability to protect the rim when they get there, there are reasons for that. That is not a crazy thing to say. The Magic will give up shots at the rim, but they're not going to let you get many of them. Now, again, this is where we're going to tell you how good Jonathan Isaac is. Jonathan Isaac gave up 52.7% shooting at the rim. Again, essentially turning shots at the rim against him into coin flips. That is insane. That ranked him 11th, in fact, in the league among players who played at least 15 minutes per game. And it was the 4th, actually, among non-centers. Jonathan Isaac, again, is an elite player in so many areas. He's actually 13th among players who faced at least 2 field goal attempts per game at the rim as well. Goga Bitadze, probably the Magic's best center rim protector, gave up a respectable 55.1% at the rim. Carter gets criticized for his rim protection, but he only gave up 58.4%. He was actually pretty good. It was a little bit down. He's at 57 in 2023, 58.4% in 2024. Not going to go crazy over that. That's pretty solid. So even though the Magic don't have an individual shot blocker, they finished 13th in the league with 5.2 blocks per game. Their strategy is essentially to limit shots at the rim altogether. In fact, here's some more numbers for you. The Magic gave up only 28.7 field goal attempts per game within 6 feet of the rim, according to NBA.com's tracking stats. That is the 5th fewest in the league. Opponents shot 62.5% on those shots. Again, these are closer shots. You expect higher percentages. It's not crazy. That was 0.2 percentage points worse than expected. So teams shot about average when they were able to get to the rim or get into the paint. But they didn't get into the paint a lot. In fact, even then, Orlando gave up just 16.1 field goal attempts per game in the paint outside of the restricted area. That was the 9th fewest in the league. It's one of the few areas where the Magic were not elite. They gave up a decent percentage of those shots. Those are shots they're kind of willing to give up. But you're not going to get there a lot. Overall, the Magic gave up 47.5 points into paint per game, 8th in the league. I said this a million times last year, win the paint, win the game. Whoever gets to 50 points in the paint was going to win Magic games. That was the battle for the Orlando Magic because their whole offensive strategy is to put pressure on the rim. This team was very good at preventing teams from putting pressure on the rim. And yes, Orlando fouls a lot, and that doesn't get captured in these stats. They did commit a lot of fouls. They did send teams to the line. They wanted to be physical. They wanted you to feel them. And so this is still an area where the Magic can improve. But to say that they're bad at defending the rim, I don't think that tells a full picture or a full story. It isn't something that has killed Orlando or sunk their defense because the defense is designed to prevent those shots to begin with. And the Magic were very good, maybe not elite, but very good at preventing those shots last year. So maybe there was some three-point luck. Maybe there was some of that other stuff. I think the Magic are more comfortable giving up threes than they are shots at the rim. Because again, they know they have those long arms. If you get into the paint and they're surrounding you, they got a lot of long arms you got to throw over. And then they're going to work hard to scramble back out to the paint and contest any jumper that comes out of it. They're going to make a bad pass. Again, stuff that doesn't get captured in stats. On time, on target passing. Are you going to move the ball to the player on time, on target, so he can go straight into a shooting rhythm? The Magic, with their length and their deflections and their disruption, are going to prevent that. And that's the key to this Magic defense. It starts with individual responsibility. Again, no one exemplifies that more than Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs. They're going to keep their man in front of them. They're going to recover. They're going to make it so that you don't gain an advantage on them, and you're dealing with a physical disruptive force. Then it comes down to deflections and disruption. They're going to make it hard for you to get to your spot. And if you try to pass it, they're going to make that pass hard. They're going to make it difficult for you to run your sets directly to the spots that you want, enabling their defense to recover. And then finally, the Magic aren't going to let you take the shots you want. If you think you're getting a good shot, you are not getting enough of them to make the Magic's defense pay. This is a really good defense. And yes, it is a defense that has gotten better because Anthony Black is an excellent defender for his age, and they're going to put a lot more defensive responsibility on him this year. They're going to use Jonathan Isaac a ton more this year. You know, Mo Wagner has come a long way defensively. He was a very good defender last year. Again, third in the league in charges drawn. He's going to be in the right spots and call the coverages out the way that they need him to. Wendell Carter is certainly due for a bounce back here. He could be a much better defender. It is very, very possible that the Magic have the top defense in the league this year. They'll be fighting for it with Minnesota, with Oklahoma City, teams that do have above the rim protectors, a Rudy Gobert, a Chet Holmgren. That's maybe the one element the Magic are missing to be the top defense in the league. But the Magic aren't going to be easy to score on. They got a lot of elite perimeter defenders in Jalen Suggs, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jonathan Isaac, and Franz Wagner. They've got some strong players who know and understand their role and where to be, and that makes them so difficult to deal with. The Magic's defense is going to be their defining hallmark once again this year, and it's going to be exciting to watch them play. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I'm doing my player outlooks on that page, finishing up my playoff lessons. I've got previews of the entire Eastern Conference of all three divisions up on that site as well. You can scroll through. You can buy individual articles if you don't want to subscribe for the full thing, but $5 a month is a pretty good deal, I hope, and it supports me directly, so I truly appreciate all of that support. Quick podcast announcement. I am tentatively planning a live episode Monday, October 7th. I think it's October 7th. Yeah, Monday, October 7th, after the Magic's opening game against New Orleans Pelicans. We'll react to what we saw in the first preseason game. We'll overreact to what we saw in the first preseason game. But with a 1:30 matinee, assuming that I'll be able to watch it, we'll come on the show. We'll do it live. We'll talk about the Magic Pelicans game. So plan October 7th. I'm tentatively planning for 7 p.m. to chat Orlando Magic, New Orleans Pelicans. I'll finalize those details next week as we get deeper and deeper into the week. Now, though, that you're done listening to me, you can hear on Locked On Magic. You can now go listen to Locked On NBA for your next listen, where local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we are going to talk about when the Magic's championship window is going to open. We'll talk about the ESPN Future Power Rankings and a whole lot more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Wright. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.